Happened again. We said this on Monday when we covered the ambush shooting of the two cops up in the LA area near Compton. And now, less than a week, it's happened again. This time over in Phoenix, Arizona. Two state troopers, they were in uniform but sitting in an unmarked vehicle when a car pulled up, honked, a 17-year-old jumped out and began firing. Troopers say the suspect did use an assault rifle. The troopers returned fire. The driver fled, leaving the passenger behind. That shooter is now in custody, but there is a national search now for the driver. Take a listen to local law enforcement in Phoenix, Arizona.
The suspect vehicle approached him. He was facing southbound on 37th Avenue. The suspect approached from the south northbound. And as he approached our trooper did not understand at the moment how much danger he was in. Within seconds, the suspect exited the passenger side of the vehicle with an AK-47 that you will see pictured here. The AK-47 is a short-barreled weapon. We're called an AK-47 assault pistol. Subject exited the vehicle and he began to shoot at our trooper as he exited his vehicle. Our trooper was clearly visible in his vest that said police. There was no question it was an ambush, and he was identifiable as a police officer. As you can see in the pictures that will be provided behind you, you can see two bullet impact rounds from the suspect into our trooper's vehicle. Had the trooper not had the wherewithal and the ability to quickly exit his vehicle and engage the suspect, undoubtedly, he would have been shot or killed.
More disgusting behavior, folks, committed by American citizens against our brave law enforcement officers. And I will say this on the record, incited by people on the left, politicians at the highest level, network media groups at the highest level. And I, for one, will wear the thin blue line flag on my lapel till this ends and past. I've been doing it years before all this violence started. And if it offends you, and if you think it's racist, get real. Joining me now to discuss more about the attack on our brave law enforcement officers and what's being done at the federal level in the courts to put these thugs behind bars for, let's hope, the rest of their lives, Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch, Chris Farrell. How you doing? Thanks for coming on the show here on Real America. Chris, your first time. How are you today, sir?
Doing very well. It's great to be with you. Thank you.
So you have to be sitting there in D.C. and watching all this unfold across our country weekly. Another ambush, another shootout, another officer walks up to a door on a domestic call or pulls somebody over for speeding, and they're shot in cold blood. They're maimed for life. They're killed. Just as an American, not what you do for a living, Chris. How does that make you feel when you see what we have come to now, where the good guys are the bad guys and the bad guys are supposedly good?
You've defined it well. It's an Alice in Wonderland upside down situation. I can tell you as a former federal law enforcement officer and as somebody who's spent the last 35 years working with law enforcement, this is a travesty. This takes a toll not just on the fabric of our country, the trust in the justice system and in policing, but it's very corrosive. It really shreds the public's confidence. It creates mistrust, distrust. It endangers law enforcement officers. And the long-term consequences are the people that we rely upon to protect us are the people that we're now trying to turn into enemies. And it's all coming from one part of the political spectrum, and that's the left.
Yeah, I don't care how you slice it. They can come up with any excuse they want, but this is rhetoric from the left. And let me back up and say, because I know the first thing they say when any conservative or any Republican says that their rhetoric is getting people hurt or killed is, well, President Trump has been doing it since day one. With his tweets and his rhetoric, he's gotten people injured. And then, of course, when you push them to say, show me a tweet, show me a press conference where he said something that would incite the KKK or white nationalists or whatever they claim that he incites violence with, where you would have misconstrued that to go out and attack someone, and of course they have no proof. They have no sound bites. They have no tweets because there's nothing there except proof that shows our president has condemned white nationalists and Nazis and the KKK. But you can literally go back and look for comments from Harris, Biden, the media, where they're questioning cops' motives, where they're point blank putting a bullseye on cops. And then this happens again in less than a week. What's being done at the federal level to make sure that, because I know there's still some liberal judges in places out there, that these guys don't get off easy for shooting and wounding or, God forbid, killing a police officer? I know the president's talked about stepping this up and making sure it's immediate death penalty, quick trial, let's go.
I know that there's been efforts in Congress. There's a couple of senators who are advancing a bill that ensures and protects law enforcement officers' right, their immunity under the law. Certainly, Attorney General Barr has a great obligation here to really bring to bear any sort of terrorism issues with respect to how police are being treated. This is a form of domestic terror, and the domestic terror that is being offered up is such that it only can be dealt with at the level of the Attorney General.
So you prosecuted these guys, you worked in law enforcement, you've been around this pretty much your whole life. Tell folks a little bit about what, if they don't know, Judicial Watch is all about.
Sure, we're a public interest law firm and watchdog group. What we do is we go after government corruption. Our mission statement is that we promote integrity and accountability in government politics and the law. So we go after dirty politicians. We go after public records and make them available to the public. We do things like take the financial disclosure forms of every federal judge in the country and we put them online so there's accountability. In instances where folks have abused their authority or discretion, we go after them through the law. And we do things like take the 1.5 million names on the voting rolls in Los Angeles that are there improperly, and we force Los Angeles County to remove the 1.5 million fraudulent false names on their voting rolls.
Yeah, so glad you brought up voting because we are just 46 days away, right? 45.
Right.
And the president spoke a lot about it last night on the campaign trail in Wisconsin. And then, of course, the left and the media immediately jump in and say he's false, he's lying, voting by mail is totally safe. If they listen past the headline, and that's right, I'm going to have you clarify for us, Chris, absentee voting, because I'm a vet, you get it, it's got your name on it, it's sent directly to you. Or if you want to do voting by mail, you have to request it. Your name is on it. It's mailed directly to you. It's for you only and sealed for you. These are just open ballots with nobody's name, whatever, and they're mailing them out in these states across the country. And so how do you confirm and guarantee that's the person that filled it out? And then some of them, no signature required, and they come back, and we've seen voter fraud in some of these primary races, like the president spoke about last night, anything from a mayoral race to some congressional races, where you've got a couple hundred, a few thousand, even tens of thousands of missing ballots, of extra ballots coming back in. But then they tell us voter fraud cannot happen by mail. Your answer to that?
Voting fraud is absolutely encouraged and actually promoted by mail. It is an enormously dangerous, risky ploy. It's a way to suppress voting by simply not returning ballots that you don't think would come from a favorable district, or going into an apartment complex and sweeping up, 20, 100, 500 ballots, and then filling them out the way you want and delivering them to the polling place. It's a wildly dangerous premise. I know the absentee ballot version you're talking about, because I'm a former Army officer and I'd sign off on ballots witnessing that they were being filled out properly. But this blanket balloting, where everything's mailed out to anybody and everybody, is just ripe for all sorts of abuse and mischief.
Yeah, so the message from Chris Farrell from Judicial Watch, who is a watchdog group, folks, is vote in person. Put your mask on, clean your hands, there'll be distancing. If you can go to Walmart and stand elbows and you-know-what's to next to each other, you can go to the voting booth and vote come November. Final question, do you think this thing most likely is going to end up in the Supreme Court? Because the way the left's talking now, it doesn't matter which way. This could be a massive landslide for Trump, and it's going to go to the Supreme Court, isn't it? Because we're going to have problems with ballots. It reminds me of 20 years ago with the hanging Chad with Gore Bush.
Yep, I can tell you that, there's already a document from an organization called TIP, Transition Integrity Project, a 22-page document where they've laid out how they're going to disrupt the election. They've got a plan. This isn't a maybe or a what if. They've got a point-by-point plan of how they will disrupt the election. And they keep citing to the idea that there's going to be street violence over this.
Well, yeah, we heard sorry, Chris, we heard Kamala Harris say that in an interview not long ago. Remember, she said the election won't matter. This violence and unrest is going to be now, during, and after the election. She said it. They're calling for it.
I mean, they are a whisper away from actually inciting the violence themselves. In my view, this is a criminal provocation. It's an attempt to disrupt and destabilize the election. It's outrageous conduct.
No, I totally agree. We're out of time. Chris Farrell, we thank you so much, the Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch. Thank you for coming on our show for our first inaugural week here on One America. We hope to see you on Real America again real soon. Have a great weekend, Chris.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.